remember that lovely phrase, when the EU sprouts, UK says how high. That'll be the memory. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. My promise to you, there's the text. But first, I'm now going to hand over to Gerard Batten, MEP, and he's going to conduct this last session of the morning, and then I will very quickly tie up with a couple of announcements. Thank you very much, everyone.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be brief because I think we're a little bit behind time now. But as you know, I'm the UKIP spokesman on immigration, and I've written our policy. And as with Law and Order yesterday, I've just submitted, or recently submitted, a new policy document to our National Executive Committee. Now, I'm not going to talk about it in detail. If you'd like to know what my ideas are, there's a little brochure on my stand immediately outside the hall where you can have a read and see the ideas that I've suggested. Now, we all know that in UKIP we're not opposed to some immigration. But the problem is not with immigration, but as Nigel said yesterday, with the sheer scale of immigration, which is unprecedented over the last few years in our entire history, and of course the open borders policy with the European Union, which means that anybody can come who wants to. It's out of control. For years now, it's been effectively out of control and unlimited. When you give 450 million people the right to come to your country if they want to, I call it unlimited. I don't know what anybody else would call it. And of course, we know in 2014, in January, we're opening up the borders again to another 29 million people from Bulgaria and Romania. So it isn't going to end. So anyway, what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to hear about it from somebody else. Now, the chap who's going to talk about our immigration policy is, in fact, a former immigrant himself, Amjad Bashir. Now, Amjad is a proud Yorkshireman. Now, most Yorkshiremen were born that way. They can't actually help it. But Amjad chose. You've got to hand it to him. He chose to be one. But he's actually made a success of his life. He's a success story of a migrant, somebody who came into this country and has worked very hard and been successful. So I'm not going to say too much about it. I'm not going to say anything about it because he's going to tell you all about his success story in his own words, and then he's going to tell you something about our immigration policy and why he supports it. Thank you.
Good morning, London. I'd like to say something to Gerard. I wasn't born in Yorkshire, but I came as soon as I could. I would like to start today by telling you a story. 53 years ago, a man, his wife, and their 8-year-old son arrived in this country. The man and woman were keen to work hard to build a life for their young family in the United Kingdom. At that time, the First and Second World Wars had stripped the heart out of 2 generations of the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom was crying out for hard-working people to travel from the Commonwealth and alleviate the labour shortage. The father, although born and raised in a part of India which had recently become Pakistan, had always thought of the United Kingdom as the homeland. The father understood on leaving Pakistan that life would not be easy and that he and his family would face many challenges. He certainly did not expect anyone to give him a free ride. However, to him, the UK was a place where his hard work would be rewarded and where his enterprise and determination could fulfill his dream to provide a good life for his family. Integration in those years was not something that was debated, postulated, over and pussyfooted around like it is today, the family had no choice but to assimilate. To learn the language and knuckle down. Within the first week of living in their new home, the boy was sent into the street to play with the local kids. To make sure his instructions were followed, the father locked the door behind the son. As the father understood that the only way his family were going to thrive in their new home was to learn the traditions and the cultures of the place, jobs for skilled workers in the mills of Bradford were plentiful, and notices on mill gates were abundant, asking for weavers, pickers, combers, and overseers. Despite the language barrier, the man soon found a job in a mill, working 6 night shifts a week. On the 7th day, the man and his son earned extra money through selling perfume door to door, despite speaking little English. The father's work ethic had been passed to his son, and the boy was soon thrown into the deep end at school, while through sheer necessity, his English rapidly developed and he started to thrive. By 1971, the boy had gained a place at university to study for chemical engineering. By this time, the father's enterprise and hard work had paid off, and the father ran his own successful business, which he gladly passed to the boy. However, within the first year of taking over, the boy, now a man, promptly sent the business bust. However, after the father had picked his son up, brushed him off, said his piece, the family got on with the task of starting again. Never once did the family ask for anything other than the opportunity to achieve their potential and be contributors to our rich British society. As you have probably guessed, the boy in this story is me. I stand before you as a successful 61-year-old businessman, husband, father, uncle, grandfather, and a proud member of British society. So what does my story have to do with limiting immigration into the United Kingdom? Surely my story is an example of how immigration to the United Kingdom works. If you think that, then I'm afraid you are wrong. Things have certainly changed since the family arrived in the 1950s. The failed immigration policies of the EU has left this country on its knees. And the principles that my own father held so dear, that where hard work pays and enterprise is rewarded, has been lost. In a grab for health care, education, benefits, housing and services that has left the entire system teetering on the edge of an abyss from which it may never recover. When I entered university in 1971, the number of people in the UK born abroad equaled 4%. By 2011, the figure had reached 12%, and 25% of all births were families who have originated from outside of the United Kingdom. Some will twist this speech to be about race, but this is not racism. Instead, it is about simple economics. This massive increase in the migrant population coincides with a fall in manufacturing output, available jobs, and rising indigenous unemployment. Under the strain of uncontrolled EU immigration, we now see massive cracks appearing in our services such as healthcare, housing, education, and benefit system. There is a distinct difference between the migration of the 50s and 60s and the migration today. As I have previously said, in the past the jobs were there, the infrastructure was there, and the expectations were there that hard work paid dividends. Today, the same cannot be said. Due to the European Union open door policies, we now face problems like that of health tourism, paying child benefit to children who do not even live in this country, and paying for other countries' unemployed. While we sympathise with the poverty in other parts of Europe, the UK simply does not have the resources or the economy to cope with the influx of economic migrants that the EU saddles us with. An example of this was recently highlighted in a popular red-top newspaper. A graduate single mother from Lithuania berated the UK as a soft touch for allowing her to claim over £50,000 of benefits while spurning a full-time job. The woman, who wears designer clothes, has foreign holidays, and lives in a furnished flat paid for by the state, says she simply takes what is given to her, thanks to our strange system, and who wouldn't? To me, that story says it all. Things have certainly changed, and not for the better. So how do we fix things? Firstly, we take control of our immigration policy from the European Union. To use a broad generalization, there are several types of immigrant coming to this country today. Firstly, we have those who work hard and contribute. Secondly, we have those who are in true peril and need the shelter of our nation. Third, we have those who do not wish to contribute and simply want to take from our society. UKIP supports a limited amount of immigration of those who truly wish to better themselves. The same is true for those people in genuine need. The UK has a rich tradition of sheltering those in peril, and this, on a limited basis, would continue under UKIP policy. However, it's the third group that is our greatest concern. It is those, like the woman described above, that UKIP policy aims to target. Those who use and abuse our hospitality and our healthcare and our benefit system for their own enrichment while giving nothing back. To stop this drain on our resources, UKIP would create a Minister of Immigration who would report directly to the Prime Minister. It would be this person's job to impose effective border controls. Establish true statistics on migration numbers and implement British immigration policy. This implementation would include the shutting down of bogus colleges, time-limiting work permits, and removing those who break immigration rules. New immigrants would be categorized into three categories: those seeking permanent settlement, student and workers on time-limit visas, and tourists on visitors' visas. UKIP would also make the breaking of immigration restrictions a criminal offence. For example, those who enter the UK illegally, overstay their visa, or break their visa restrictions will, under this legislation, be committing a criminal act. And would be dealt with under criminal law with appropriate punishment. To achieve these aims, UKIP would scrap the European Convention on Human Rights. Too long has this restrictive piece of legislation hampered the UK's attempt to control immigration to this country. Too long have we been unable to remove people like Abu Qatada and Abu Hamza, who both have committed crimes abroad and then milked our benefit system while opposing the country's attempt to make them face justice. Too long have we pandered to an unelected set of judges who are not in touch with public feeling in their own countries, never mind being in touch with the public feeling in Britain. It is only through leaving the European Union and the European Convention on Human Rights that we can truly win back Britain for the British. Thank you.